Welcome, everybody. We got a live stream going on right here at First Star Logistics, and it's my pleasure to be joined by the outstanding Joe Goodberry, who knows everything you need to know about football, but we're afraid to ask. So we're gonna take all questions that you have. Training camp is about halfway over. It's a little over the halfway point, and the thing that impresses me, I guess, most. Let's get right to training camp because you've been in town. You've seen some workouts. To me, when you go on a day-to-day basis, every single day so far for me, the speed is obvious. I mean, I can feel the speed. Did you feel it, Joe?
Yeah, for sure. You can tell that it's been a couple weeks now. Everyone's into it. Just how clean they can get from one drill to the next, how clean their movements are, how, I'm watching the D-line go through warm-ups, individuals, and just you can see everyone's looking crisp and ready to go. And the intensity starts to pick up just a little.
Yeah, I think part of it is Zach is so good at taking care of the players, and they have all these GPS devices they use to monitor speed and heart rates and all this sort of thing. So when guys need to take a break, he'll let them take an individual break, like a day off, or if the team needs to back off collectively. His whole thing is 2 days on, a day off, like a walkthrough day or so, or a total day off. I think he has a pretty good idea how to get the most out of his players on a day-to-day basis in practice. And as a result of it, man, they know how to practice. They practice hard.
I was going to say, the players must respond to that, right? You would know if a coach isn't going to kill you. All right, fine. In our 90 minutes, we'll go as hard as we can.
Right. They are getting good effort. And sometimes, guys have to learn how to practice like that. Not every organization is the same. And the free agent guys that come in, I'll say to them, hey, what do you think about training camp practice? You almost have to learn a little bit of what they're expecting out of you because it's a little bit different here. And every one of them know, but boy, does he take care of his players. That word gets around.
Well, you look at the last few years, other than Joe Burrow,
right.
They've arrived week one healthy.
Right.
And they've been relatively healthy. Their Super Bowl year, they really were. And then last year kind of fell apart in the last few weeks. But yeah, there's a method to the madness, I guess.
I agree with you. And you look at it, the last two seasons, regular season playoffs, they have 40 games. 40 games in 2 years. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body, not counting the preseason games. And Zach has a way of handling the preseason, which are very kind of veteran players. But I mean, you have to take that into account. And I think the strength and conditioning people do. The thing that I'm impressed most with about Zach is he's got the continuity and consistency of himself, his coordinators, every phase, offense, defense, especially strength and conditioning coordinator, assistant coaches. They're all on the same page. So nobody's like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Everybody knows why, and there's a reason for everything.
And I noticed that practice is more efficient so I was there Sunday and I'm watching the defensive backs, and right away I'm like, they're working on switch releases and bunch sets. You can tell the offense is going to do that when they get together.
Right.
There's no wasted time, right? Because the offense is doing that when they're on their own, defense is practicing for it, so that you can go out there together and you know what to expect. Yesterday was play action. I heard them talking before.
Right.
They were working on play action, stack them, peek, and then shed if you need to. And then so they go out there and do the few 11-on-11s they had, offense, defense, and they're working on that. So it's a way to make it efficient and get as much practice time as possible in a short time.
The other thing that strikes me is position versatility. I mean, almost every position group on this football team, you have to be able to play them more than one spot. And that's life in the NFL today. I mean, back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, in the ancient days, I mean, they had nickel defenses, dime defenses, or substitution patterns. We knew exactly, okay, we're going to this package. Now, they don't have to substitute. Lou Anarumo's got a bunch of his defense already installed. So I see the position versatility, and I see the football IQ. You have to be able to learn multiple things. So not only be able to, execute it physically, you have to make sure you're doing it properly and assignment sound mentally. And that's another thing I noticed about this football team, because they're in their team period now, not even halfway through training camp. They weren't going off scripted plays. They were calling a play in the huddle and letting the defense make adjustments. So it's like, it's not scripted and all the defense coordinator knows what the offense players, so I'm going to run this defense. The players have to make plays. And I think that's a big deal.
I noticed that yesterday, a lot of communication, especially on the defensive side. The defense was out there ready to go, and they're talking as the offense is coming out of a huddle, and it didn't stop until the snap started. And
right.
You can tell the communication. I think That's the part. We're used to looking at this team like a young team. They're not anymore.
Right.
They're a veteran team. There's a lot of guys that have been here for 3, 4+ years now, and the same coordinators have been here the entire time. That helps. You can stop focusing on Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson. They're your veterans. Now we can talk to these other guys
Right.
that maybe are new to the team or need the help. And I think because one of the big questions this year is how do you fix the communication or the what you're going to miss from the safety
right.
position. And I think it could be the linebackers, it could be the Mike Hiltons, it could be when you get Joey Awuzie back.
Right.
But you see those veterans now that have been here 3+ years, they're taking control of it.
Yeah, they are, and it's just it's good to see the continuity and consistency that's going on a on a basis, players, assistant coaches, head coach, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's going to be an exciting football team to watch. I think there's no two ways about that. It is amazing though how Joe Burrow in training camp seems to be oil and water. I mean, they just don't mix, man. It's crazy.
We just shut them down now. August comes, put them down.
Unbelievable. But I do think he got a ton of reps in OTAs and mini camps. He got a lot of reps, in the month of July before the injury. So I do think that when he comes back, if he can get just a few days work in before that opener to knock off some, physical rust and dust, he is right on it all mentally. He was, and you know as well as anybody, Joe, this guy, he sees the field from sideline to sideline, line of scrimmage to the end zone as well as, and he's still doing it. He's going through every mental rep. He's just not able to participate physically.
And he didn't have those before. Even in the past 2 years where he had the offseason injuries or the
Right.
COVID year, they didn't have the May work for him. They
Right.
didn't have the OTAs because he was either recovering or the team wasn't even able to get together. So he did get some offseason work. He was able to work on new things. And yes, I'm with you. Last year they were rusty, but was that a physical rust those first 2 weeks? Because obviously you have an appendectomy.
Right.
He didn't look the same, like in terms of strength and,
Sure.
I think this time you get him a week of practice before week 1, he should be mentally sharp and ready to go.
And you'd handle the draft and break it down and dissect the draft as well as anybody. Now, you have all these presents that you get on draft day, but then that's kind of like Christmas Eve. But Christmas morning is when you unwrap them. And now they get him on the field and they're seeing, you know what? He's as advertised. We thought this was the case, but they feel really good about every single draft pick having a role. Making this football team, it's so deep, it's a heck of an accomplishment. They feel that they can not only make the team, they're fighting for a specific role, which is big.
No doubt about it. And normally your 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, you want to get them in. Hopefully they can compete for a roster spot. If you're a bad team, you really want that guy to make the team. So you look at it this year and you're like, yeah, Brad Robbins probably is the punter. But then you go to 6th, 7th round and you're looking at guys like DJ Ivey and Andre Yoshivas, and you're going, whoa,
yeah,
I think they're better than they expected. They're more advanced than they expected. All right, if they can play special teams, not only are they probably on the roster, but can we get them active on game day? That's the next step. And that's why I love preseason. You get to see these guys do that in live situations against another opponent. Can they do the special teams part?
Yeah, and I think I'm really impressed with DJ Ivey. Now, 2nd round pick, obviously highly regarded coming out, but this kid, fastest guy in the combine, so he can run. But I mean, he covers flypaper, man. The dude's sticky, and I think honestly, depending on what goes on with Cheeto, he could be battling for a starting job.
Yeah.
I mean, this kid is a really, really good football player. And what I like about him is the consistency, snap in and snap out. DJ Ivey is
Turner.
That's Turner. DJ Ivey, the 7th rounder, Turner, the 2nd rounder, Ivey, the 7th rounder. Turner's consistency on a snap by snap basis, but DJ Ivey, in my mind, he's got ability, he's got length, he's got all that, but consistency on a snap by snap basis, Turner is much more consistent.
Oh, yeah.
Turner will flash. It's like, whoa, he'll make a play. And that's what I expected out of Yosivas, he's going to flash me. He's making consistent plays. I mean, I agree with you. I think with him, they think they have something more than they anticipated.
It feels that way, right? Like that's the feeling. Like I think around the draft world, it was, throw a dart at Yoshivas, see what you get. He's got size, he's got speed, he make a lot of contested above the rim type plays. And then you get him here and you go, every time it seems like they're saying, hey, work on this release, work on, getting guys' hands off you and press. The next day I see him, I'm like, he's better.
Right.
And if he's doing that and they're recognizing that, yeah, that's how you find the gems. They haven't had a late round gem in a while. This team could really use it, and maybe it's one of these two.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Charlie Jones. Charlie Jones kind of aggravated that right shoulder, missed 2 days, and he's back at practice. He knows as well as anybody. There's the big three, but 4 through 6 or 4 through 7, however many receivers they keep, that's going to be a battle royale because there are some veteran players that have roles because of special teams play. Are they going to be able to be unseated by these young guys? I mean, there's great competition. I'm really interested in seeing how these guys play in the preseason and how this team's going to be constructed.
Because I want to see Charlie Jones catch the punts. You want to unseat Trent Taylor as that job. Well, let's see you do it. You can't do it if you're hurt. So I think he'll come back. He was out there at least in pads and was catching some punts in practice yesterday. But I think we fans overlook a lot of times the role of a guy like Stanley Morgan, who is a phenom on special teams. If you're watching him punt gunning yesterday, they couldn't block him. He's strong, he's physical, he's fast, he knows what he's doing. If you want to unseat that guy, it may be because they keep a 7th receiver. And you're for a 3 wide receiver team that's going to spread it out. Maybe you do keep 7, and that's how they go.
Right. And you know, there are parts of every phase of football, offense, defense. I mean, there are building blocks. Darren Simmons has his building blocks on special teams as well. And that was a big special teams practice yesterday. I know I was impressed. I'm sure you were too with the intensity of how those guys were competing to catch Darren Simmons' eye. You know, it's like not only in the game, I got to go make plays in the game, but I got to go practice well because these guys all practice well. Darren knows these guys can play. I got to step up and show I can play. You know, and it's a guy that intrigues me too is Cam Sample. This guy is versatile, unbelievably intelligent. He's an intelligent guy. When you talk to him in the locker room, he's a smart dude, and he's got high football IQ. Having a guy like him in the rotation, I think, is massive.
He's the underrated guy. They may be 5 deep.
Right.
You know, you spend the 1st round pick on Miles Murphy. I expect Joseph Osai to take another step. I really like him as a prospect. Cam Sample kind of gets lost there. But he's the best run defender of that backup group. And looking at him this year, he looks trim, he looks strong, he looks quicker. He's getting a lot of pop out of his hands. He's moving guys when he makes contact. I think there's a chance here that he might be a good player. Like that's where I came away yesterday. I'm like, man, look at him, his intensity. The top 2 guys, Hendrickson and Hubbard, they always bring it. Intensity's always up there. But the next guy was Cam Sample to me. Watching them, I'm like, man, he takes his practice seriously.
He does. I mean, he gets after it, and he gives him position versatility. He can kick inside, and you know, Murphy, I was impressed with. He's got that first step quickness. The thing about him, not only does he get off the ball with that straight arrow back and the quick first step, his second and third step, he's still motoring. A lot of guys have that first step quickness, and then you can recover, and if you take a good angle, you can get back into a scenario where you can kind of handle him a little bit. But this guy, his second and third step, he's still motoring pretty darn well. And I agree. I think Osai and Gunter is playing. He's got more explosiveness and more suddenness to him now too. You know, he's over the injury, and I'm telling you, man, they're deep. They got some guys to rotate on the edge that can kick inside in some cases as well.
That's the key. I wonder who's going to do that most. We saw Osai do that last year. We saw him do it in practice. I'd love to see Cam Sample do it a little bit more. I want to see Miles Murphy with that length get him inside. But you're right, his get off is impressive. I have a clip I put on Twitter, slowed it down. He got off, first guy off out of everyone, and he's going against Deontay Smith, and he gets to that corner, and Deontay Smith is retreating right away and just gets a piece of his shoulder to run him around the arc. And I'm like, yeah, that's the next step there. Knock that hand down, cut that corner, and get a sack.
Yeah, it's been impressive so far. I mean, they're practicing well, they're practicing hard, but the key to any season, as we know, Joe, I mean, it's like avoiding a key injury to a big injury to a key player that involves a significant length of time. If you can be lucky in that regard, the team that you put together stays together, and every time the team has done well, gone to a Super Bowl or made the playoffs, that's been the case. You haven't had a tragedy. It's like, we can't lose that guy.
Yeah, and they're deep at receiver and corner. Maybe they could survive an injury there, right? But I think at like tight end, they can't lose Irv Smith. At running back, they can't lose Joe Mixon. They already lost Travion Williams for a little bit now. We expect him to be back before the regular season, but still, there's a lot of inexperience at that position. I think they're a good roster, a really good 1 through 53, and probably even up to 60. They're going to have some guys that are claimed, so they can survive a few. But, man, you're right. It can't be the key ones, and it can't be at the positions where they're really thin.
Right. Irv Smith Jr., you bring him up, that's another guy. In my opinion, he's a big wideout. He runs. He has route running ability like a wideout would, and the fun starts when he gets the ball in his hands. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I do agree that the rubber meets the road. When they only have one cut down now, which is remarkable to me. I mean, there's going to be over 30 players from every roster out there, almost 1,000 players out there at the final cut down. They only cut one time. Teams can cut players, but they're going to be sprinkling, a few players here and there. There's no other cut down dates. Man, that's going to be a wild night night.
Duke Tobin and his crew better have your homework ready before the cuts, right? You better have your eyes set on a few guys before it even happens. But
no doubt.
I've really enjoyed watching Irv Smith. It's funny because typically they'll put the safeties when they're going one-on-one.
Right.
And he's shaking safeties. But Dax Hill is he's a physical, athlete. And when they get together, that is a fun match.
It is. There's some good one-on-one battles at all these position groups. And that's the thing, is when the roster's good. And I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of Bengals that are going to be let go on this roster that other teams are going to pick up. And that'll be the true indicator. Which teams had the most players that they let go picked up by other teams around the league? That'll tell you, they do have a deep roster. But some of these one-on-one matchups, it's like I was coming off the football field. I was talking to Ted Karras one day. We were walking off the field at practice. He goes, "Man, I feel real lucky. Every day at training camp, I'm going against DJ Reader. Nobody's going to give me a better look in the running game than that stud right there." And he said, "I get to go against him every day in practice to get better."
What a monster, DJ Reader. And he's one of the guys that stir the entire defense, I think, because he can play two gaps, right?
Yep.
He makes the numbers even when you don't want to put an extra guy in the box. So what? We'll keep an extra safety back.
Yep.
We won't worry about it because Reader's going to tie up two guys. And he's one last year. He almost got hurt, or he got hurt,
right.
But it could have been worse.
Right.
And then he comes back, and the defense instantly is like, "Oh, I see the difference."
Yeah.
And we got 1 year left on his deal. Hopefully, get one more good year out of him, or they figure out a way to extend him.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. Man, they have so many really good players coming up in the next year or two. That's going to be, and of course, the ones they're trying to get done this year as well. It was good to get Logan Wilson and Pratt both signed, though. I mean, people were wondering, going to be able to keep that dynamic duo intact, and they did. It's a big deal.
They haven't had a linebacker duo together for a long time. Spikes and Simmons, but that was still only 5 years, right, after Spikes left. It's been you had a couple years with Maluga and Perfect. You really haven't had that longevity. This now should at least go 7 years if, everything goes right, and maybe even longer. We'll see how it goes. But that's a long time to have these guys communicating together, growing up in the same system together. They should be like husband and wife out there.
There you go. Well, I could talk to this guy for hours, Dave, but I mean, I know we got a lot of fans out there that want to pose a question or so. What's going on over there on the board, Dave?
Well, as always, we have to give our shout out to Yash over in England.
Yes.
He's always here, but also Cliff out in Cali. We have Oregon in the house. Dolores is here. So we're going to go. This is going to be kind of Joe, because I kind of know the secret, what Joe's got coming out. And Dave Lennox's question is, Houday, what can Joe Mixon do to improve his pass blocking? Not to give away a little sneak preview, but you have something about this, Joe.
Yeah, we focused on it, and they had one-on-one drills letting running backs pick up linebackers, and I thought Mixon looked good. He had one play, Dave, we went over this, so I don't want to give out too much away. Bengals on the brain tonight. You'll see the breakdown of what it looked like. I just think mostly with Mixon is a little bit of trust factor between everyone involved. Let him do it. Let him make some mistakes, but also figure it out. You got to get him on the field on third downs and in passing situations. So with Travion Williams not being there, he doesn't have that safety blanket. It's a rookie behind him and Chase Brown, who I thought looked good as well. I do think the Bengals will use Mixon a little bit more in those situations.
Yeah, and I think it's almost crazy to say, but confidence. I mean, it's like, Joe, he's willing, and it's like, Joe, you can do this. And I think there's always been a guy that's able to do it, and it's like, you know what? That's a good role for him. Let me run the ball. Now it's like, all right, I got to step up, and I can't be a weak link when I'm out there, and I'm supposed to make sure this linebacker doesn't touch Joe Burrow. I got to get it done. So you just have to get your mind right, and be as confident as you are in blitz pickup when you catch the football, run the football, whatever else. He's physical enough. He's athletic enough. He's willing. It's just a matter of getting it done. I think he can get it done.
Next one is from Cliff. Cliff, this is for you, Dave. Booger McFarland, Dan Patrick this morning said that Burrow should not risk playing until he's 100%. because the early season schedule is much easier than later in the season. Your thoughts, Dave?
Okay, Cleveland at Cleveland, Baltimore, another division opponent. Yeah, it's a cakewalk, man. That's easy. I don't know what you're smoking, but I mean, I can tell you that division games are never easy. I don't care. I can remember when we were struggling, and we would split with the world champion Pittsburgh Steelers every single season we played them because we knew them. We knew what they were going to do. We knew how they were going to attack. We wanted to beat them. It was a division rival. I mean, you're talking Cleveland Browns, and there have been people now that are saying the Cleveland Browns, not a dark horse to win the division. People are outright picking the Cleveland Browns to win the division. The Bengals haven't won in Cleveland since, I don't know, since Joe was a little boy. I'm telling you, it's tough going up there and winning in Cleveland. They haven't done it. They haven't done it in the Joe Burrow era, and it's long before that. So going to Cleveland to start the season, particularly if Joe Burrow is not able to play, or if he does play, has very limited, practice preparation, that to me is no cakewalk whatsoever. And then Baltimore, people are picking them for division. The AFC North is a beast, and the Bengals play two division rivals, one on the road, one at home. Tough, man.
And I don't think if Burrow can play, he will, right? That's
Right.
just how he is. But
Right.
you don't want to put blood in the water for the Sharks, right? For the division rivals to look at that and say, "Oh, we've got a chance to get on the Bengals," and
Yeah.
put them down while they're hurting. They're not, I don't think they're going to give. That's not a cakewalk. And anyway, if anything, it makes it even harder.
Yep.
To go out there without Burrow.
Yep.
Dolores has this. Hi, Dave. Welcome, Joe. I heard Kappa has a strain also. Who is up? Who is next up? Any update on the other injuries?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of injuries that we can talk about. Kappa does have a lower body injury. Trey Hill stepped in at that right guard position. Trey Hill capable of doing it. Max Sharping. I'm basically referencing the 2 deep that the Bengals just put out for this first preseason game. This, though, is probably not worth the paper it's printed on because if you're a veteran player and if you've been with the Bengals for a few years, you're going to be the backup. You're going to be the next guy. Even if that's not the case, but it's the early stages of the competition. But this depth chart can change, and it can change dramatically. And the one thing I never did as a player was look at a damn depth chart. So, but that's what they did at practice. They had Trey Hill in there. He can play, center and both guards. Some of the other injuries, we talked about Charlie Jones having the shoulder problem. He practiced. He didn't go in the team portion of it, but he's working his way, back into it. Joe Burrow, of course, with the calf, he's not working yet. Trying to think of other injuries that you might be talking about. Yeah, Wouzier still coming back from the ACL. He's doing some individual things. He's still not participating in the team portion of it. And the way Zach takes care of the players at practice, the other thing that he's going to do, he's going to keep the reins on him and pull the reins. All right, you say you feel good? 3 more days. Feel good for 3 more days, then we'll see. Come back and see me. We'll see if you can go to practice. He is not going to rush guys back out there.
And I don't think Alex Kappa would have played in this preseason game,
No
or
doubt.
maybe even any of them, right? So that's okay. They can give him the time. He doesn't need the work.
No doubt.
He'll be ready to go when he's ready to go. But the other guy probably to mention is Cody Ford, who they signed from the Cardinals. He has played tackle and guard. They put him at 4 out of 5 spots in camp so far. That's going to be key for him making the roster. Show you can do it and be at a decent level. And that's versatility.
And the Bengals had him rated very highly coming out of Oklahoma, and he went in the 2nd round. Orlando Brown went in the 3rd round. He was drafted higher out of Oklahoma than Orlando Brown was. So a lot of teams in the National Football League had Cody Ford evaluated very, very highly. And the Bengals were one of them. And they were a little bit surprised that it didn't pan out. Watching him at camp from day one to now at the mid-season or the mid portion of training camp, he's come a good ways. I mean, he's battling now. He's a good football player.
I always thought he'd make a better guard because he's a little stiff. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not the tallest and longest either, but he looks like a guard to me. He's got that boxy shape, and he wants to wrestle. He wants guys in close. He wants to use his power because he can be really nasty. He's going to get a chance to take it out against someone else finally, whether it be the Packers joint practice or the preseason game.
Yeah, he's tough in the closet. You get him in a confined space, man. He'll bat you around a little bit, but that Packers practice I'm looking forward to because I remember as a player, it's like you relish that first preseason. Finally, we're going to go hit somebody else. And then, Joe, it's also like when you're working against the same guys for a couple of weeks, repetition, it's like, I know his best move. If I take that away, I'm going to make him do the counter move. I've got a counter to the counter. You get guys figured out. Now, all of a sudden, you're up against good football players that you haven't seen one bit. There's no tape on them this year. Maybe they learned a new move or whatever, and now you go out to practice against them, ones against ones. It's a different dynamic. I mean, it ratchets up. This will be preseason game number 1 for most of the guys that are in the starting lineups, quote, projected starting lineups.
Yeah, and it just tests your awareness a little bit, right? Like, all right, now they're coming out of formation. Where is the number 3? What is it? Oh, the number 12 is their number 3. So,
Right.
like, it's like you got to think of these things because you've been practicing on the same guys every single day.
With the same formation,
right,
same
right.
looks.
So you're kind of used to it. So you're coming right out. Now you actually, all the things they're preaching, now you
Right.
act on it.
And it's interesting too. Lou likes to install a big portion of it like right away, and now you get to test it against somebody else. Okay, now I've noticed a few times somebody will notice something defensively, make a call, other guys jump on it and repeat the call, so everybody's on the same page. It's going to be interesting to watch that, hopefully against the Green Bay Packers as well. And it's not like looking around at each other like, what the hell?
What's that call?
All right, we're going to go to Les's question. Hello, Lap and Joe. Can't we survive the hit of not having our Rolls Royce number 9 for several weeks? Who dey?
Well, you got to hope you can survive that hit, but do you necessarily want to have to? No, not really. I mean, I do think that Joe Burrow will not be missing. He will definitely be playing well before the bye. The bye's after 6 games. There in my mind, there's no way that he's going to miss that kind of length of time. I just don't see it.
And maybe you could survive it if you were going to a decent car as a backup, right? If you
Right.
I got a pickup truck. I'll just take the pickup truck. The Rolls Royce is in the
Right.
shop. And I don't even think it's like an '89 Volkswagen Rabbit. I think we're riding a bicycle if we don't have Joe Burrow out there. So could you survive it? Yeah, maybe, but it's gonna be a tough ride.
The thing is, it's the same receivers running the same routes. But when you watch Joe Burrow execute it as opposed to the others, it looks totally different. Why? Because Joe Burrow's ball placement is so extraordinary. He's not making receivers stop to catch it, reach behind him to catch it. One-handed trying to pull it in because it's overthrown. He's putting it, boom, boom. He's putting it in spots where they can do something after the catch. That is what differentiates Joe Burrow, in my mind, Joe, the top quarterbacks in the NFL, that ball positioning accuracy and putting it in the tightest porthole possible.
And the timing too. You see that with the offensive line.
Right.
You really get used to the timing of your quarterback hitting that back foot, getting the ball out, especially when he's in repetition. They're just going, right? You could see it, Simeon slower, Browning slower, as expected. I'm not knocking the guys, but when the ball comes out a little bit late, then you're now the gap or the separation between the wide receiver and the DB should be 2.5 yards. Instead, they're on his hip. Well, that makes some contested situations.
And this reminds me of something I wanted to bring up. I was impressed as a former lineman when your number 1 guy goes down and you used his cadence, his snap count, and you have other guys in there. Usually there's a day or two where there's a bunch of false starts. Everybody's trying to. It tells me the focus and concentration of this football team is pretty damn good because the team portions of practice, there's one here or there, but it has not been a malady. And I'm like, you know what? Tells me these guys they are lasered in, man. And that was a good sign. The operation, the execution but the operation was solid, and guys weren't making pre-snap penalty mistakes, that kind of thing. So I was very impressed with that.
It helps to return most of the starters, right?
No doubt.
Especially on the offensive line. This is not one guy returning like last year. It's 4 out of 5.
Yep.
And so, it helps do that.
What do you think about Volsman? 325 pounds, the lowest body fat of any offensive lineman. This guy worked his tail off in the offseason. You're not going to run through the guy. I mean, he's long, wide, broad. Everywhere you can be big, the dude is big. I think he's really, he wants to be great. I think he's going to have a hell of a year.
Well, he's got a good opportunity being sandwiched between Orlando Brown Jr.
Right.
and Ted Karras. That helps, right? So only issues I had with him last year, even as a rookie, and I thought he might have hit a rookie wall getting to the end. He played 1,300 snaps. It's a lot, But some of his pass protection lateral movements, I haven't noticed it. I haven't noticed any deficiency there. It looks quicker, it looks leaner, it looks massive and strong. You're right.
He
that
does.
left tackle, left guard combo is as big as any in the NFL.
total eclipse of the sun in every way. I mean, these guys, big, tall, long, broad, wide, full eclipse.
All right, we got to take care of some business. Lap, I know you've been busy in the studio as well as at practice and everything you're doing with the Bengals. You got some exciting shows coming up. I know earlier today you did some recordings, so I know there's some people maybe you want to say, hey, be watching for on In the Trenches. And I know, Joe, you've been busy at camp. And again, it's great to have you in Cincinnati. And people are going kind of crazy. They're seeing that logo and people are commenting on your logo. And I know you got some stuff you want to announce because there's a book. There's the show's coming out. Talk a little bit about that. So we're going to, Lap, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just, In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, obviously is what Dave's referencing there. And we talk to coaches, we talk to players, we talk to people in the broadcast world. Most recently, in fact, here just a little while ago, sat down with Jimmy Chase, Jamar's dad. Very, very interesting conversation with him about Jamar. Dad, Jimmy, was a defensive back at Alcorn State. So, I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in terms of genetics there. And, but Jimmy will be the first to tell you he was not as freakish an athlete as Jamar, and not many people are, Joe. There's no doubt about that, right? And the other one, Joey Bozay, who we've podcasted with before, but the most recent one that'll be coming out here shortly is he's talking about GPSs and how they track the speed of the players, how they track how many times out of 3,000 snaps, 300 snaps, we want them above 15 miles an hour. If they haven't hit it, he'll actually stay out with them a little bit longer and have them run and hit that kind of mark, because he doesn't want them to get into a game and haven't really hit 20 miles an hour like they can hit at top speed. And where is it? Game time, it's not there. So he's talking about a lot of things about the strength and conditioning program, not just pumping iron, not just being meatheads, but applying it to football and things that translate to functional football speed. Like we talked about, there's track speed and there's football speed. And these guys can really run, have adapted it to the game of football, which is what you got to have.
What do you think your GPS top speed would have been back in the day?
I don't know. That's a good question. What's a 4940? What is it? I wonder what that GPS would go to.
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
And then this is with pads on, so it may be a little different.
Yeah. He said that they've got 10 guys that, approach 21 miles an hour or better. Wow. I mean, that's a bunch of guys.
That's fast.
That's fast. That's a lot of guys. And I asked him, I said, how fast was Sam Hubbard's GPS when he was rolling on that famous fumble recovery for a touchdown? He said he got up to like 17, 18 miles an hour.
And that was coming off a calf injury, if you remember.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Go for full circle there. Yes. People.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me add this. In the Trenches can now be found on In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube, and also on the First Star Media Group's YouTube channel, as well as where we will find Mr. Joe Goodberry and Bengals on the Brain. And I'll let you know. You got a lot of stuff going on, Joe.
I do. We got an episode tonight where we're going to recap the practices from Sunday and Monday, put that together. I've got clips from each practice, plays we want to break down, performances, things that I noticed and thought were interesting. That will be tonight's episode. We've got an episode coming up on Thursday where, if you know him, Bengalorian, Ron, he's a super Bengal fan. We went out to Paycor Stadium, got out on the field. We played catch and we just talked ball. We had a good time, as guys do, right? So that'll come out on Thursday. But yes, if you have noticed, there is a book, a Bengals on the Brain training camp book. This is made by First Star Logistics, of course.
Look at that glossy cover, man.
The cover's
unbelievable.
Really nice. I know Dave back there. He put a lot of work in there. I want to make sure he gets some credit too. But it's got player evaluations on everyone, and it's got grades. And this is a grading process that I've developed and used for about 10 years now.
Nice.
And I feel very good about it. Something I've wanted to do for a long time. So if you don't know who Devin Asiasi is and you see him make a play in preseason, pull out your book and go, that's who he is. That's what I should expect. And it's a resource for
it's a Bible. That's a Bengal Bible right there. And I will say, I pride myself in preparation, doing homework and all that, not being surprised, by what takes place during the game or whatever. This guy, Joe Goodberry, and that guy, Dave Burke, are grinders, man. These guys put in the work, no question.
Well, thank you for that, Lap. But all the credit, I mean, I know I can brag because Joe's work, as soon as you got a copy of that book, you've been using that book.
I have. It's one of my resource books, no question.
All right.
Absolutely.
That's going to lead us to this question. And it comes from LeBron James 513. And the book is perfect for this. How many people per position do the Bengals keep this year? Very curious to see how this is broken down this year. Who's your most interesting battle for a spot on the roster? Thanks, Who Day. And we're going to go let you take that, Joe.
I think corner is very interesting. Obviously, typically you want 10 defensive backs, right? So do you go 5 and 5 with 5 safeties and 5 corners? The fifth safety potentially being whether that's Tyson Anderson or Tyson Anderson's a guy they really liked when you got to see him last year. But Michael Thomas as probably the special teams captain again. I watched him yesterday. He's just out there going through mental reps, talking it out. He's got the bags lined up for punt protection. He knows exactly. He's even imitating the huddle and talking to guys and adjusting guys. So it's like, I don't see how that guy doesn't make the team with that type of preparation again.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean if you keep 5 safeties, you're only going with 5 corners? Because this is a deep corner room. I mean, if we're assuming Awuzie is healthy by that time, Cam Taylor-Britt, Turner, Hilton, we're already at 4. And they want DJ Ivey. I think Sidney Jones can help this team, especially if someone goes down or if Awuzie isn't ready. It gets deep really quick. They like Jalen Davis as the backup slot guy. They like Alan George, who they kept last year. You're going to cut a couple guys that are going to make someone else's team.
No doubt. You have cornerbacks that are down the depth chart here that could start on other NFL teams. Period. No question.
No doubt in my mind. So I'm watching those guys. And then, sometimes preseason settles it a little bit with injuries and, things happen. But man, I'm looking at that corner and that safety room and saying, how do you only keep 10?
And that's a great place to look. But it's interesting. Darren Simmons is the guy who has the big hammer because it boils down to how many snaps am I going to get out of these guys? The 5th corner, is he going to give me more snaps than the 6th receiver or the 5th receiver? Snaps not just at the line of scrimmage in terms of offense or defense, but Darren, how many special teams is that guy on? Do we keep the extra receiver? Do we keep the extra corner? How is that going to impact you on game day? Darren Simmons is a guy who really determines the fate of a lot of guys on trying to make the final roster spots on that roster because they are his core players in special teams, some of them. And he's going to stand up and bang the table with his shoe to fight for some of these guys because, like you say, guys that have been with him for a number of years that he can trust, he's going to want to keep as many of those as he possibly can.
And you bring up receiver. We talked about it earlier, but we didn't mention Trent Irwin, who I thought was at a great summer.
Solid camp.
Yeah, so you get to that last guy, that 5th guy, that 5th receiver has to play special teams. I don't care if he's not a better receiver than maybe the 6th, 7th guy that's on the roster. He's going to be active on Sunday. He has to play special teams. It's a requirement.
Right. And then out of the edge rush guys, edge rush / linebacker, versatility guys, who's going to give me the most special teams reps? That gives them an edge, in the final roster cutdown. Special teams become enormous as you're putting together, the final 4 or 5 guys on the back end of that roster for sure.
All right, Joe, you got something else sitting to your left. And I know the book, you're going to be at training camp tomorrow. And I know prior to going out to training camp, and I think there's going to be some stuff you're going to announce about how you can get a copy of the book and maybe even one of the hats.
Yeah, that's right. Usually when we're standing in line ready to go going into training camp, there'll be a lot of other Bengals fans out there. Look for the people wearing the First Star stuff, typically blue, right? That's the colors.
There you go.
Yeah, they're handing out bucket hats. They're handing out physical copies of the book. First Star says they'll get copies to everyone who needs them once they get the link up online. But we do have a digital version coming as well. If you're not in Cincinnati, if you're not at camp tomorrow, that's fine. You'll be able to get this some way, at least on your phone.
All right. So we're going to go to Zach Hicks. I think said he was from Oregon. And it kind of goes into what you guys were talking about. Wondering if they might throw in some 5 receiver looks this year with all the depth.
Oh, they've done it in the past. I mean, that wouldn't be the first time that they've had now 5 receivers. There's all wideouts, not necessarily. You have Irv Smith Jr., who's a tight end, but you can, put him in the slot. You can put Joe Mixon in the slot, and that's the beauty of it. You can line up with what you perceive as 11 personnel with 1 tight end and 1 running back and 3 wideouts. Then all of a sudden it's 5 wides by formation. You can have 5 wide receivers out on the football field if you want to, but the position versatility that we're talking about offensively and defensively, allows you to do those kind of things. And now, you have a tight end like Irv Smith Jr. in the slot, who, like Joe said, was tooling safeties. You put a safety on, you're not going to put a linebacker on him. Put a safety on him, you still think you can win that. Joe Mixon in the slot on the other side. Now what do? Linebacker on Joe Mixon? He'll win that bad boy. And you get that guy out into space where he's not comfortable. I mean, your personnel flexibility and versatility allows you to get mismatches, like you're talking about, the 5 receiver set. It doesn't have to be just, quote, a wide receiver.
And that's the key, actually. The Bengals call it empty. That's empty.
Sure.
So there's no guy in the backfield, right? So you've got 5 guys out that can run patterns. And if we get in the huddle, offense brings their guys in, defense brings their guys in based on, okay, they've only got, you can do it with 2 receivers. There's 2 receivers in there. Okay, go out there, base defense.
Sure.
And then they come out and they're empty. And now your linebackers got to go out and cover in space.
Yep.
Oh, the Bengals love that. And if it's zone, you make it Jamar Chase with a linebacker on him. And so it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't have to be 5 wide receivers, but will they go empty? Yes, and a lot.
They'll do it a ton. And that's why it was imperative in their mind to get Pratt and Logan Wilson signed. Logan Wilson was a defensive back in the early stages of his career in Wisconsin. And then he got bigger, stronger, faster, bigger and stronger, and kept his speed, and they moved him to linebacker. This guy, they feel pretty good, Logan Wilson going out there covering a receiver. I'll tell you what, I've seen Miles Murphy go out there when a tight end is flexed and done a decent job in the flat. I've seen him on tight ends. I've seen him on running backs. They feel like they've got guys that are big, can run, and aren't huge mismatch problems. And that's why Lou Anarumo feels pretty good, I think, about having almost his whole defensive game plan in there and not having a substitute to have it in there. These guys get it.
Because he has to defend this offense every day in practice. And you're right, Jermaine Pratt was a former safety at NC State as well.
Yeah.
On Monday, they're working on spot dropping with the edge guys, and whether it be middle of the field or getting to the flats. So it's definitely something that's on their mind.
Yeah. I mean, Murphy looks very comfortable in space, and he's a gifted athlete now. He really is.
All right, we're going to get down to our last probably 5 minutes here, so everybody knows. Some quick questions here for you guys, for both of you. Cliff's question was, he nominated the Jets as the most overhyped team of the new season. Lap, your pick, then Joe, your pick.
Well, having played in the Big Apple with the New Jersey Generals, Donald Trump's team, and Donald Trump was very good at getting hype, and there's no doubt he collected Heisman Trophy winners, Herschel Walker, Doug Flutie. He was competing. He knew he had to compete with the Giants and the Jets. And New York City, man, they show up for an inter-squad scrimmage. I mean, there was more media there covering that than I had covering the Bengals in the Super Bowl. I'm like, where the hell are all these guys? Who are they writing for? There's a zillion publications. So, yeah, it makes sense that the Big Apple, New York, in New Jersey, is going to overhype their football team, particularly with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who loves the hype, and he's going to be all about the overhype. So, yeah, the New York Jets, it's going to be interesting to see how they start out. I mean, if they stumble coming out of the gate, could be Oogie Oogie over there.
Yeah, that oven could be on 450 at that point real quickly. But
no doubt.
They're excited because, let's be honest, the Jets haven't won much. They haven't done a lot in my lifetime. You remember them as the great Jets probably, but they haven't done anything.
1969, Joe Willie, right?
Right. So I get it. We would be excited too. So I'm not going to knock any Jets fan that maybe filtered his way into this video. But I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to say the Philadelphia Eagles lose your coordinators. We talked about how the consistency for the Bengals, keeping those guys, how much you can add to the playbook every year and develop guys and bring them along when you have the same system, same voices. The Eagles lost theirs, but it's a really good roster. We'll see how a lot of the questions the Bengals had, hey, are you going to come over from a Super Bowl hangover, right, of losing last year? Well, let's put those questions on the Eagles. Let's see how they handle it.
That's a good point.
Woodpipes, who are the top 5 most important players not named Burrow for the 2023 season?
Oh, jeez.
We may have to do this together then. We'll figure this out together. I'm going to put Orlando Brown Jr.
Chase?
Yeah, okay, fine. We'll Jamar Chase and Orlando Brown.
Right.
I think Orlando Brown because, you put that investment in. We want to get he should be the last piece for the offensive line. While he's a crown jewel,
right?
It's the 5th spot, right? It's the 5th guy that they've been looking for.
Yeah, and here's a guy that 2 Pro Bowls at right tackle, 2 Pro Bowls at left tackle in the last 4 years. I mean, he's got a pedigree, and he's the kind of guy too, Joe. I mean, he was so easy to get to know in the locker room with his teammates. He's one of those guys, when you talk to him for 5 minutes, feel like you knew him for 5 years. He's very, very easy to like. He really is. And I think he's going to be a big impact on the football team.
Yeah.
Huge.
And we talked about DJ Reader. I'll add him.
Yeah.
I think for the reasons we said, that you can take a guy out of the box when you have Reader tying up that much space in the middle. And he is so tough to block one-on-one. Teams won't even try it, right? Because they're like, he's going to demolish our guy. He's probably the most underrated guy still nationally. And I think people that watch film know, and they're like, oh yeah, DJ Reader is probably one of the best nose tackles in the league. But
I agree.
I think nationally people are like, whoa, this guy is a freak.
I can't agree more. I mean, in my thing defensively, we talked about a couple of offensive guys that obviously they're huge. And then, I mean, like you said, Joe Burrow, that's obvious. There's some obvious players, but defensively, I always look at it as like in baseball, strong up the middle defensively. Nose tackle, DJ Reader. Linebacker, we talked about Pratt and Logan Wilson. I think, so DJ Reader, Logan Wilson, and Dax Hill. I mean, it's how's he going to handle that safety position? I think making communications properly, seeing it properly, making the right call, and then being able to communicate that call and get it out to everybody so everybody's on the same page and it's not one group's thinking one group's thinking another. I think that's going to be big.
I'll give you a couple plays that I saw at camp, and that gives you the both sides of Dax Hill there. There's a play where they're bringing jet motion. I think it's Trent Irwin coming. No one picks him up, right? He catches the ball down the sideline, and it would have been a score. But you see, I slowed it down and watching, and Dax Hill comes up, and he's pointing to Cam Taylor-Britt. Get to the
out
boundary.
there. Yeah.
Get out there. I'll take Chase in the slot. And they both kind of look at each other like, what? And then, so no one goes. Irwin's left wide open. And then I saw a 3-safety look on Sunday where Dax is coming up and playing the Trey Flowers role and one-on-one man coverage with Irv Smith Jr. And they put both safeties were Nick Scott and Jordan Battle. And I'm like, you're going to get a lot out of Dax Hill and that versatility doing that.
Yeah. The one thing that Dax Hill did last year to prepare him for this, he played slot corner, outside corner, safety. He was all over the place. I mean, they gave him full exposure. The one thing I like about DJ Turner, they played him at left corner, right corner, in the slot. They've moved him all over the place. So this kid gets it. Lou Anarumo's scheme can be daunting. He understands it. They're able to move him around like a chess piece, like they do with a lot of their players. They have high hopes for. That's why I think DJ Turner's making a little bit of noise, man, to get some playing time.
And if I can keep us up the middle for our last guy, we probably want way over 5 guys that are important to this roster. But Ted Karras, and it's a lot of it because I don't know what they have at backup center. They've started to put Max Sharping in there, which is great for his versatility. That's a guy that can play all 5. He's a former tackle in college. And then Trey Hill, we haven't got to see him much now going into year 3. We'll have to see what it looks like in preseason, but you lose Karras, you may lose something there at center.
And Karras is the guy that initiates all the calls. I mean, he initiates call. Joe Burrow will follow up on calls that Ted Karras makes to communicate up and down the line of scrimmage for protection purposes. I mean, he's key. He's instrumental. There's no doubt. I mean, he's big to the success of the O-line.
Yep.
It's always hard when we get to the end because you see these questions. But I want to ask this one. Stan Blanton says, does Tanner Hudson become tight end 2? And does the Kirkland kid from Washington make this team?
I tell you, the Kirkland kid is one massive body. I mean, he is long. He's huge. Is he stiff? Yeah, he's stiff. But he takes up so much space. I mean, he's a space eater, and it's hard to bull rush him. But with that said, he does have to get his pads down because he is long, and the pad level. I think the pad level and stiffness are 2 issues he has to deal with.
And he's had some injuries sometimes that hurts guys in getting low. But you're right. It's the planet theory. There's only so many guys out there that are this big and that long. And not just hard to get through him. For being a guy that's a little tight, sometimes it's even hard to get around him because he's a mountain. He's just making you take the full radius.
He is man mountain.
But I want to bring up Tanner Hudson at 87.
He can catch now.
He can move.
He can
catch
the rock.
He had a one-on-one with Nick Scott that he undressed him and then got to the sideline, made a toe tap and grab. Yesterday's practice. I don't love the depth at tight end, so I think that's a position they could be looking at cut down day. He's got a chance on.
And a guy that has made plays now, and I'm not saying that he's going to be one of the 5, 6, or even 7, but Shedrick Jackson, Bo's relative. The dude can run, obviously. I mean, he's got a gene pool, and the kid has made plays. He's shown up. It's like, this guy's not just a camp guy. This guy can play football. Shedrick Jackson, man, it's like, whoa, somebody, if he goes out and plays in preseason games like he's practiced, and teams do get access to tape at practice and everything too. They will, if they have good relationships, they'll trade tapes and everything. Kid keeps playing like he's playing. Hey, he may, at least somebody's practice squad,
He seems to be watching Jamar Chase very intently, and I can see the way he's doing his releases and getting in and out of his breaks. I'm like, that's a good guy to try and emulate. I'm not saying you're Jamar Chase,
right,
but like that's body type wise, I can see the speed and in and out of their breaks. I'm like, yeah, okay.
I'm sure Bo said, hey, pick somebody out and learn, man.
Yeah.
Good advice from a guy who is a decent athlete.
All right. This is it. Cliff, I saw your question to me about college football. Yes, it's a total mess. That's a whole different story. Dalton Signatures basically is, I'm going to go the Joe.
Okay.
Any pointers for a diehard Bengals fan who was coming to week 2 Baltimore Cincy? Will be his first time at Paycor Stadium, let alone Cincy. Give me the First Star Logistics pointers, please. And Joe, I think you're the perfect person to answer this question because you've been in a couple of times. You've also
seen
here
downtown.
You kind of seen
right.
downtown. You've seen everything. So I'm going to let you answer that question.
Yeah, and first I'll say hi to Dalton. Dalton's a great artist and does a lot of good things on Twitter and on the internet. So look out for him if you guys aren't aware of who he is. But yeah, I'm not only has First Star been completely accepting and welcoming and warm, the whole city of Cincinnati is every time I come down here.
It's great.
You can ask, and Dalton's got a little bit of a following on Twitter, so you can, find some people. Hey, where should I go eat? There's restaurants everywhere, right? There's not a bad place. You can throw a stone and find a good place to eat.
For a city this size, it has a big number of restaurants.
It is. I've been eating pretty well. So, so come on down, have a good time. The First Star Suite is awesome. If you ever get a chance to do that, they put out they roll out the red carpet, put on a show. Everything at First Star is crazy, big, extra. You think we've gone far enough? No, we've got further to go.
First class plus.
Yeah, it is. So you'll have a good time.
All right, that is it for us in this live stream. We appreciate everybody with their questions and for watching. Again, make sure you can catch Dave Lapham in the trenches on his channel on YouTube, as well as the First Star Media Group channel, and Joe Goodberry, Bengals on the Brain, on the First Star Media Group's YouTube channel. For all three of us, we appreciate you being with us. Until next time, hoo-day.
Hoo-day, baby.
Hoo-day.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.